Welcome everyone to the Read and Writing Corner. I'm Leanne, your host for this video. For the majority of the videos. All of them so far. But hey, what do you know? Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, and welcome back. If you've been here before, I'm glad to see you. Oh, I'm so glad that you've stopped by again for a second roundabout. Well, today we're going to do a non-spoiler and spoiler review for The Thin Executioner by Darren Shan. This is the first book of the May TBR of 2024 that I have just started in May 2024. So, as you can see, I've done a lot of changes in how I'm doing my reading. Like, got a lot of sticky notes sticking out of all kinds of stuff that I have pinpointed that I thought was interesting and whatnot. Shall we move on? Okay, this is actually a standalone. There is no sequel, there is no prequel, there's no nothing. But it was inspired by the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So, keep that in your mind. About this story, The Thin Executioner is a novel written by Irish playwright Darren O'Shaughnessy under the pen name of Darren Shan. Inspired by Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain and The Firework Maker's Daughter by Philip Pullman, as well as The Middle East. What made me read this book? It was written by Darren Shan, and I had read his Fruit to Freak series, which I will be rereading for this channel. I reread this one too. I forgot how gruesome it was. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this that I forgot about. Okay? So, the blurb for the book, which is not the back, but I can read the back to you. This is what the back says. The executioner swung his axe. Thwack! Another head went rolling into the dust. There was a loud cheer. Rashid Rum was the greatest executioner Wadi had ever seen. So, in a kingdom of merciless tyrants, Jebel Rum's family is honored as royalty because his father is the executioner, but Rashid Rum is near retirement, and when he goes, there'll be a contest to determine his successor. It is a contest that thin, puny Jebel has no chance of winning. Humiliated and ashamed, Jebel sets out on a quest to the faraway home of a legendary fire god to beg for inhumane power so that he can become the most lethal of men. He must take with him a slave named Tel Hisani to be sacrificed to the god. It will be a dark and brutal journey filled with lynch mobs, suicide cults, terrible monsters, and worse, monstrous men. But Jebel, the risk is worth it to retrieve his honor, to his unimaginable power, to become the Thin Executioner. Dun dun dun. So Jebel Rum sets out on a quest to become strong and invincible in order to enter the Mukhiret, which is basically a contest to see who could be the strongest at cutting off heads. To become the next executioner of his village, Wadi, he shall go on a perilous journey full of strife and hardship he had never experienced or expected to happen to him. His only companion is his slave, Tel Hisani, who was fated to fall to Jebel at the end of their journey. So the setup of the characters was done well, not too quick and not too drawn out. The motives for the main characters are laid out bare for everyone to read. Their background set up along with the world in this dark fantasy takes place within. The plot laid bare within a few chapters, because this is mainly for the genre is considered young adult, not middle grade dark fantasy. I thought it was middle grade. Obviously because the kid's like 12, I think. In this, I don't really remember his age, but he's young, so I thought it was middle grade, but it's not. It's young adult, and I'm actually glad because it is really dark fantasy. It's got some stuff in it that I did not think would be put in it, but it is. So considering this is inspired by the real world and the hardships of the past, the characters react to their situations correctly. That includes the soul journey that one of the main characters goes through. 3 guesses who, and your first 2 don't technically count. So So, did this live up to my expectations? Yes, I forgot how much Jabal goes through on his journey to reach Tubaygat. It was a ride to read again, and it's a lot. You gotta be in the mindset to read this. If you want to read the young adult dark fantasy of this, it's a mindset that you have to be in. For most people, for me, it's this book, and I don't really need to be in a mindset to read a book. I just read books and I enjoy them the way they are. And this one is nitty and gritty. So yeah, I did enjoy it. Oh, what was more? Well, actually, no, I'm skipping something. Which character did I relate to the most? Bastina, crying when people who don't deserve to die are executed. She has sympathy for all humans. The character that stood out the most of the secondary characters would have been Hisani. Hisani took what was coming. He just accepted most of the time what was coming to him, and he made a promise. He did his damnedest to keep it. He would not let nothing and no one get in the way of him keeping the promise he had made, not even the one he made the promise to, which is Jabal. And it was all to save his family, because his family was what was most important. His wife and his children were the most important things to him. And to sacrifice himself for somebody else to release his family from slavery was a heroic thing to do, a selfless thing to do. What was more important, the characters or the plot? The plot was more important, but the characters moved it at a steady pace, because without them, the journey would never happen. But without the plot, the journey wouldn't have been needed. There was only one POV, and that was third person. It mainly focused on Jabal Rum, but it dived into others around him sometimes. Not all the time. But mainly it focused on Jabal and what he was thinking and feeling. So, before I end the non-spoiler review, I will leave you with this. Should you go and read this story? Maybe. If you like dark, gritty fantasy for young adult reading, go ahead. If you think this might be a little too childish and young adult, I will tell you one thing that happens to Jabal that makes this crazy. Okay? He gets 2 of his fingertips sliced off. 2 of his fingertips sliced off. If you think that is childish and yet you shouldn't read it, if it's because you don't think it belongs in the young adult genre, well, I mean, there you go. That's something that makes it nitty and gritty. So if you don't want to be spoiled because you haven't read The Sin Executioner, please exit the video at your leisure. Are they gone? Have they finally left? I thought for sure they were going to stay forever. So you meet the main characters, side characters, and important characters within this book. And you meet a lot of them. There's a lot. So, the first one you meet is Jabal Rum. He is the main character that sets off on a quest to appease a god called Sabah Eid in order to gain strength to become the next executioner in his city, even though he's skinny and puny and scrawny. Tell Hisani, a slave that accompanies Jabal on his quest in order to be his sacrifice, because apparently the legend goes that Sabah Eid will grant you a wish as long as you can sacrifice somebody, and they have to be your slave. So, that's terrible, right? Rashid Rum, current executioner of Wadi, and is stepping down from the position so that one of his sons might take his place. He's hoping it's either Ja'al Rum or Ja'an Rum that take his place, because he doesn't think Jabal can do it because Jabal is skinny. So, Ja'al Rum, Jabal's older brother, who is competing in the Mukhiret, become the next executioner. Then you have Ja'an Rum, who is Jabal's eldest son, wants to compete as well. I think Jabal all wanted to travel, though. But of course, they both wanted the honor to be the next executioner. Then you have Jebel Og, the girl Jebel wanted to marry at one point, but did not end up marrying in the end because he married somebody else. Ja'an Nasrim, a well-traveled man who found Jebel's sacrifice for his quest in the slums of their Wadi city. Marasa, his son, and their children, slaves that are promised freedom for their father if their father/husband becomes sacrificed, and they are set free in the end, even though he was not officially sacrificed. Wadi Og, the High Lord of Wadi, father to Jebel Og, who didn't think that Jebel Rum was ever going to return alive. Then, yeah. So, Master Bush, a grave robber that pretends to be a traitor. He, along with Master Blair, the companion of Master Bush, enslaved Jebel, made Jebel their slaves, and forced him to rob graves. And they tortured them to enforce their obedience. They're the ones that cut off two of his fingertips. And they starved him. Before slowly feeding him again, thinking they were breaking him down. And they would beat him up. Jebel actually tricks both of them into dying by rock spirits. Which they deserve because they were assholes. They actually also sold Tel Hiasani as well, even though it wasn't their right to do so. Jebel didn't just meet them on their journey. He also met Hubaya and Sig, a person of a people that lived inside of a cavern underground. She was doing a test. Her people are all warriors, and she said that she would present Jebel and Tel Hiasan to her people so that they could pass through the Sig safely. They actually ran into trouble, and a Memla killed her, and she asked him to cut off her head so that way she could be attached to something, so that way she could live on for at least 365 years, if not, well, about 365 years, give or take. Rahman, Hubara's father, he helped them prepare for their journey onward. Qazar Bint. I wanted to murder Qazar Bint. He was a rotten man. He was an Biara, that is a cannibal trying to convert people to his beliefs of self-mutilation and self-sacrifice. As in, he believed that the only way to release yourself from the sins and go to God as a pure soul was to self-mutilate yourself, starve yourself, eat people who died, and sacrifice yourself in the end to absolve yourself of all your sins. And he actually took Jebel and Tel Hiasan in as slaves, hoping to either convert them until they died, or we're just going to right out kill them after draining them all their strength and everything, and eating them in the end for his people. He's the one that gives the most trouble. It's actually the Umbara who actually killed off a bunch of people. They're murderers. So, one of the people they actually murdered was Samarat, who was a child about Jebel's age, who lived in caves off of a cliff. They sacrificed lambs to rock spirits to keep them satisfied. He was called an Hamata. He was slaughtered, along with the rest of his clan, by the Baira, Qazar Bint's sect. And actually, the only one that wasn't slaughtered was a baby, of course, who was left to starve to death. Before they actually met them, they met the Moharaj. They met Moharaj and Kahithib. They were people that lived in a swamp and lived as one with alligators and snakes. They also met Uzzah and Gothoth. They were the ones that lived with bats. The Baira attempted to slaughter him and his people, but they called for bats to attack. So they survived, and very few of the Baira survived. Quasar bin actually did survive, and since he knew what Jebel was doing, because Jebel had it on his arm, tattooed there by a hot poker, or a symbol saying that he was on a quest to what is the place that he goes to? Tubaigat, to petition. It deals with a lot of religious tones in here because Jebel meets a lot of people with different religious views, different ways of thinking from his own people, and he has to come up with his own way of thinking and everything. But he does actually briefly die. Jebel briefly dies during his travels. And this is because he falls into a river and it's freezing cold and the river is rushing because it's the middle of winter, and he was trying to run away from bats, from from Uzzah and his bats. And he meets Rakheb Wadak, and that is a god of death that had pulled Jebel's soul right before his death to have a chat with him because he was lonely. This god of death was lonely because all he does is ferry souls. And the god of death says, I am whoever you want me to be, whatever your religion is. I am that person to you, that person. Because that is what makes them happy, to be ferried on. Jebel made a deal with him to live. Said, why don't we, as friends, meet again, and then you can finally say that you actually greeted an old friend instead of just pulling random people out, because you're bored. And he went for it. Wadak went for it and said, okay, poof, back to living. So he did escape it, and then he meets finally at the end of his journey, after Quasar bin kills Tel Hiasani, his sacrifice, he meets Sabayid, who actually kills Quasar bin and the rest of his people. They're actually a long-lived being that have been on Earth for a very long time alongside humans, and will of course die one day, but she does have powers that they do grant. Strength and invincibility, as well as she can control flames. Her people made up legends to spread around to help rid the world of evil. Evil people would come to them, and if they actually didn't die on their journey there, they would just be swallowed up by her flames, because she would kill them like she did Quasar bent in his sect. Some people actually gave up halfway through the journey, and instead of returning home as failures, they would just go find somewhere else to live. And those who made it there and had the last minute changed their minds, she would grant them the strength and invulnerability and let them go home. Jebel actually had changed his mind after Quasar bint had slaughtered the Hamata, and he didn't want to do it no more. But Tel Hiasani is like, you got to. My family's on the line. You've got to. So he had already changed his mind by the time he reached up there. So here's some lingo. Anything with an before it is a group of people, like a town, a city, a clan. Because you have the Wadi, the Sikh. You have the Bayara. Mamla is a demon that dwells in the Sikh. Or is it the Sig? The Sikh is a place. The Sig, but they live in the Sikh. There you go. The Mukhairet is a tournament to determine the next executioner of Wadi. There's only one POV within the story, and it is the third point of view. Like I said, it's Jabal, but we do get some view of Tel Hiasani and the others that are in here that are close by him at the time that it happens. You'll excuse me for a minute. My cat wants out. Let's see if I can do this. BB Kiki. I did it. I did it. Okay. Alright. Come on to the next part. My favorite character was Tel Hiasani. He accepted his lot in life and tried to be at peace with everyone. And once he accepts a mission, he does whatever he can to complete it. Like I said this before. Like, he was like, you have to complete your mission. You have to complete it. You have to finish it. We're almost there. You can't quit. This book actually has a map of the whole area. So they actually start off down here, and they gotta go all the way up to there. So by the time he's changed his mind, they're about here. And then he's like, well, we gotta finish it. So they finish it. My most disliked character was Qasar Bint. He did not care who died on his path to convert people to his way of thinking, so long as he didn't die or get hurt himself. He honestly didn't care about the rest. Who cared about them? They were not important people to him. Not at all. None of them. He held no feelings for any of them, and he was willing to eat them if they died. It was told in chronological order with appropriate language for the book's genre. The suspense for some scenes were good, but some were a little too quick for my liking of like building up and releasing the suspense. It was a little too quick. The foreshadowing was laid out for the readers to see. I'll give you a hint of what one of the foreshadowing is. But if either had known of the fate awaiting them in Jadir, they would have pushed straight on west and taken their chances with a dozen deadly fevers. So that's like foreshadowing right there, saying like they hadn't changed their mind of going through a swamp and moving on. They would have been better off than changing their mind. And another one would be, it'd be another few days before Jabal discovered what work entailed. That's when he get captured by Bush and Blair, and they're forced to work. He's forced to work for him, Rob Graven. And the last one I've noted for foreshadowing is, fate intervened in such an unexpected manner that many might claim it to be the work of the gods. So there's that also there for foreshadowing. Obviously, within the next couple of seconds, Jabal realizes that he can escape from being a slave with Tel Hiasani, and he takes it in the most open manner that he can possibly think of. Only the background of Jabal Rum is explained enough to understand. The rest were briefly touched upon to explain the current motives of the characters, like Bush and Blair. We don't know a lot about them besides the fact that they rob graves and they love to spend their money. Until Hiasani is from a country of people who get robbed of their people a lot and forced to become a slave, and that's about all it is that they're slaves. So, we don't get a lot more besides that for their backgrounds. The title of the book meant that there would be an executioner that was thin and not buff and strong looking. Obviously, the cover of the book is blank. The dust jacket, cover of the book is blank. The dust jacket has a pair of eyes staring at you from the black void. And I'm not really sure why or who that is, because I don't think anybody has red eyes in the book, but who knows? What stood out as memorable was the amount of trouble Jabal brings to himself because he does not think through his actions as much as he should. Trusting random strangers that you first meet simply because they treat you like a person, like you're all important. What kind of fool are you? I mean, he learns the hard way. Bush and Blair teaches him the hard way, but he does learn. So, my favorite passage from the story is, yes, the woman moved forward to cup Jabal's chin with a hand. Her fingers were warm and softer than Jabal had expected. Ever so often, a quester sees the error of his ways as he travels here. He learns compassion and mercy. In most cases, such people do not complete their quest, but return home or go in search of peace in some faraway corner of the world. But if you carry on, stopping only at the last instant, like you, those are the few I spare. That's the Sabah Eid talking to Jabal, because he does have a good conversation with her. And I like that, because she's like telling you, I'll only spare those questers who turn good, who are good. Because all of them starting the quest are not good people. Which means, yeah, Jabal is not a good person. He is a stuck up, in your face, I'm right, you're wrong. You know, everybody who does something wrong should be head chopped off. Slaves should not be talking back to their masters. There should be slaves. And yeah, he learns. He learns a lot of stuff. And my favorite quote shows you exactly how much he has learned on his journey. One night of slavery is too much. Jabal says that to Marissa as he returns home, saying, I'm going to free you. She says, oh, you can wait until tomorrow. What's the one more night? And he's like, no. One night of slavery is too much. Because he's endured it twice. Three times, really, because he gets recaptured by Bush and Blair for a very brief moment. But yes, he's endured slavery. He knows what it's like. He knows what it's like to be treated less than human. And he's like, that's not right. Nobody deserves that. So, what I thought about the ending of the book, it was good. I like the fact that Jabal does not murder anyone besides Bush and Blair. Because he's still plagued by it. The murder of it. He's plagued by their deaths. He has nightmares about it. To the day at the end of the epilogue, because at the epilogue he has his own children, 1 and 17. So yeah, he has a lot of resentment and everything towards people who do things wrong. And I love that he married his childhood friend, Bestina, as his mother died. Bestina's mother nursed him because he needed someone in his life that was female. And Bestina was his childhood friend who was a crybaby about all the murders. And I love that he married her instead of Jabal, who actually she was the maid to. So I'm glad that that's a good happy ending there. What book did it remind me of? Honestly, it reminded me of The Talisman, which I'm currently reading at the point of recording this video. The journey of a boy going across the world to do something. Well, in his book, it's to become an executioner. In The Talisman, it's to save his dying mother. But it's still a journey where bad stuff happens, hardship happens. He experiences things that he's never experienced before, and it changes you. This book is a standalone, and I rated it a 4 out of 5 because I think that Darren Shan should have not have killed some of the people in it, like the children in it. He kills off a baby off screen of the book because you don't see it happen because they leave and the baby's crying and you just know the baby's gonna die before long. Starvation. So yeah, there's that. If you think I deserve a like, comment, or even your lovely subscription, drop it down below. I will see you Next illusion.